The National Veterans Memorial and Museum began with a vision from the late Senator John Glenn, who understood the value of telling and sharing the story of our veterans. From the initial view, the architecture impresses upon visitors the importance of what lies within. Seeming to rise organically from the earth, the building itself is a symbol of our nation's veterans and their resilient spirit and unending commitment to making this country stronger. Once inside the museum, visitors embark on a narrative journey, following exhibitions that focus on the servicemen and women and their families. Individual stories and shared experiences are illustrated through personal artifacts, quotes, letters, photographs, and powerful films of veterans telling their unique story in their own words. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum. It's more than a museum. It's the new home of the brave. Plan your visit today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining our latest Veteran Voices program at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. My name is Colonel Retired Bill Butler, Chief of Staff on behalf of our President and CEO, Lieutenant General Retired Mike Farrader. Welcome as we kick off 2021 with our very first Veteran Voices to celebrate Women's History Month, which started yesterday. Joining us today is Kirstie Ennis, the daughter of two Marines. She was inspired to join the service following their example and joining the Marine Corps at age 17. She deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. Sergeant Ennis was in a traumatic helicopter accident, and after more than 40 surgeries and the amputation of her left leg, she's become a role model and inspiration for others around the world. Kirstie founded a nonprofit, is an avid and accomplished mountain climber and snowboarder, became a stuntwoman for the movie Patriots Game, walked 1,000 miles across the United Kingdom, was featured in ESPN magazine and People magazine, is a motivational speaker, a Vetrepreneur, and a businesswoman. In her spare time, she's managed to complete 3 different master's degrees, and she's working on her doctorate in education. Without further ado, I'll pass off to General Farrader. Sir, over to you.
Thanks, Bill, and welcome everybody, and welcome Kirstie. Thanks for joining us. It's easy for all of us to tell that you have a busy schedule, so having you here in a virtual Veteran Voices is really awesome. So thanks a lot. I wanted to just begin. We've heard about this incredible person and all that you are doing, but let's go back to your childhood and tell us about growing up in your family and what it is about that childhood and your folks that inspired you towards service. Oh no. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe Kirstie is frozen, so we'll give it a second. We've rehearsed this already once, and she'll drop off and drop back in just a couple seconds. Okay. Kirstie just texted us. She's switching to another Wi-Fi connection. Sorry. And are you with us?
I think so. I hope so. I'm sorry. Don't know what's going on.
That's okay. Great actions and reactions. So I gave you a most amazing introduction, and sorry you missed it. But actually, tell us about, as we start, tell us about growing up, the family, that you grew up in and the inspiration that you drew from your childhood and your parents.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my favorite stories of all time. My parents are still together to this day, but they met on Navarre Beach in Florida. Got married at 18 years old, and my dad joined the Marine Corps pretty much immediately afterwards. And 9 years later, after I was born and my family was living on Marine Corps Base 29 Palms in California, my mom came home and told my dad, I think these female Marines are pretty badass. And I'll never forget it. My dad turned to my mom and said, I will never be married to a female Marine. To which point she took that as a challenge and said, you know what, I'm doing it. And she went out the door, went to the recruiter's office, got an age waiver, and joined the Marine Corps, and left me at home with my dad while she went off to boot camp. And, for me, that was one of the proudest moments of my life, to not only have my father, who got up every single day and put the cape, put the uniform on, a superhero in my mind, but now I had my mom do it. And I got to witness all of it. My earliest memory is my mom walking across the parade deck. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, that people were actually sacrifice some of the most important components of their lives, their family and their time and their energy, and willing to do it for other people. And so again, just being raised by that and just admiring everything that they were doing, I knew that I was going to join the Marine Corps right off the bat. I came home every day and I watched this documentary on women's Marine Corps boot camp. My favorite shirt was this sweatshirt that said my mom's U.S. Marine. My Barbie dolls were dressed up in dress blues and camis. So I don't think it was a surprise to anybody when I decided to join the Marine Corps at 17 years old.
Wow. And then did you play sports and everything growing up? Tell us about that.
I did. Yeah. So for the most part growing up, I'll say for like middle school and high school, I was always in Florida. So a lot of the sports that I played, they were always team sports. Softball was the primary one. But I can say that none of the sports that I played growing up have anything to do with what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
Yeah. And then, we, as the National Veterans Memorial Museum, our pillars of the mission are to honor, connect, inspire, and educate. And so as you tell the story today with us and share your story, it's really pretty cool, actually, because there are people who've not met anyone like you and did not grow up in a household such as that or a military family. So you are fulfilling our mission by being with us. So thanks a lot. And so then one day you raised your right hand and decided to join, and you shoved off to Marine boot camp. What were you expecting, and what did you find?
Oh, man. Well, I'll backpedal just a little bit. So I graduated high school by 15. And when I was 17 years old, 4 months after my 17th birthday, to be specific, I was sitting in a and truly, I don't know what initiated it, but I just remember looking around the room and being like, this is my time. I am not feeling challenged. I am not feeling fulfilled right now. And I walked out of that chemistry lab and I walked into the recruiter's office. And there's no doubt in my mind that I probably overwhelmed them and maybe intimidated them because I had no questions. It was, where do I sign? How do I trick my parents into signing? And how quickly can I leave? So for me, I wasn't really like intimidated or confused, or I didn't have many questions about the process. But what I will say is when I finally went to Parris Island, South Carolina in August, I made everything a lot harder on myself than I needed it to be. So at 17 years old, I mean, as you guys can imagine, I questioned everything. Every response out of my mouth was why instead of I, ma'am, or yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
And way harder than it needed to be. But I will also say that 13 weeks of boot camp was exactly what I needed to break that little attitude that I had at 17 years old.
Can you say again what year it was, Kirstie?
So I went to boot camp in 2008.
Wow. And so again, most will know, but that means that you were probably in 5th grade when we were attacked on 9/11. And
spot on. Yep.
You're that generation of young men and women who absolutely knew that you were going to go to combat. And when you signed up, you may not have known I, ma'am, and no, ma'am, for the first couple of weeks of boot camp, but you knew you were going to end up in a combat zone. And how did that, did that add to your fire or skepticism or concern? How did that affect you?
Well, for me, so in fifth.
Go ahead.
In fifth grade, I can still remember what everything looked like. And at the time, when 9/11 happened, my dad was actually up in New York working. After he got out of the Marine Corps, he was in the oil and gas industry. And my mom came home, came to my school, walked into my fifth grade classroom, pulled me out of school. And then we sat on my living room floor and watched the TV, and prayed for my dad to call us. And that was how all of that unfolded. And then shortly after, we're talking 2 days after, my mom actually got this call implying that there was a huge chance she was going to be recalled. And so for me, I'm now in this situation where my dad's out of the Marine Corps. My mom's been out for a little while as well. But then I'm faced with a situation where my parents are very much so going to have to go through this life change and potentially, a family change, and my mom going back to the military. And so for me, I don't think it was ever, there wasn't ever a desire for me to want to go to combat, but there was always this drive just to want to protect people that couldn't protect themselves. My whole thoughts, when all of this stuff went, well, not when it happened, but, as I'm 18, 19 years old, deploying for the first time, it was never, I want to go to war, but I wanted to experience war so that I could appreciate, peace. So I wanted to be involved in the noise so that I could actually love the silence. And in turn, I think there's this misconception about, what going to combat looks like for some people. And don't get me wrong, as a helicopter door gunner, obviously you have to experience things that might require justifying internally later on down the road, but there's so much more to it. And for me, the humanitarian aspect of it, or being able to go pick up the guys on the ground, the guys and gals that are, guys specifically for the most part, that are kicking down those doors, like doing those insertions and being able to bring those people back home, or going into communities and building wells in schools, that's the part that made it for me. And so maybe I didn't fully understand initially, or that first go around, what was going to happen or take place when I went to Afghanistan. But that second time around, when I willingly went back after only a 4-month break, it was purely driven off of that. And again, sure, there's combat, but there's also so much more to it as well.
Yeah. So, that surprised me to hear you talk about the selfless service of family members as we kind of prepped up and met, talked this through. But when we say one of our mission pillars is to honor, we say honor the veterans and their service and sacrifice, and that of their families. And so what a unique experience you had as a fifth grader to have to do that reconciliation in your head. Mom might be gone, and okay, I have to buck up and be strong if that's the case, for mommy. Pretty inspiring. And we infantry guys, Bill and I are, we love a helicopter to show up and take us home. And so, again, as much as you want to get the guys and girls out, we are happy to know when we hear, skids up, clamshell, all Rangers accounted for. It's great to know you were thinking the same thing, and appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your deployment to Afghanistan in 2012, and what your thoughts and feelings are.
Oh man, yeah. Well, okay. So again, I'll give you a lot of a backstory for this one. But so when I got back to Afghanistan in 2012, we came out of the gates, and unfortunately, we had a helicopter go down that killed all 6 crew members. Their call sign that night was Irontail 06, and we can just go ahead and fast forward to, so that was in January, and on June 23rd, 2012. Normally, I would be flying on aircraft 01. That was the bird that I flew on. day in and day out. That's the one that I maintained. That was my baby. My name was painted on the sides. Like, that was my bird. And I mean, it was a strange, just, chain of events that happened, but I'll never forget it. I'm dragging all of my stuff out from the armory, and I'm going to aircraft 01. And my maintenance officer snatched me up and said there's been a change of plans, that I wasn't going to go outbound on aircraft 01. I was now going to go outbound on this aircraft 06. And so 53 unit to be out in Afghanistan. Literally right after I got hurt, like, we were packing up, and all of the 53 Deltas were done. They were retired. They were going to the boneyard type thing. And so this aircraft 06, we had made into a memorial helicopter. So those 6 Marines that we lost, we painted it all up for them, had their name on the landing gear door, the 50 cals were painted for them. We will never forget Iron Tail 06, literally all over it. And it was a strange switch, but it wasn't like it was something that wasn't routine. I was literally going to go out. I was going to do a combat resupply. I was going to drop off 3 Army medics. I was going to do an extraction of Marines from Musakala. And then I was going to come home, and it would have been almost the same as the day before. But unfortunately, I never actually made it to the point of making it to the forward operating base called Nowzad. Off at. And, for me, I was never afraid, which I think a lot of us can say going into certain situations. We never once worry about what's going to happen to us. We're worried about, who's around us. Are my pilots okay? Or are my crew okay? Are my Army medics in the back going to be okay? So when I heard crash is imminent come over comms on June 23rd, it was weird. I totally went into like this tunnel vision of just doing what I would normally do if the aircraft was landing safely. My brain goes to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mains on deck. And I mean, unfortunately, when I said mains on deck in my head, I was hitting the ground. But everything just kind of went into slow motion, and there was no praying, there was no panicking. It was just like, okay, we're going to take this and we're going to deal with it as it comes, I suppose. As we hit the ground, the assumption is, I'm sure everybody can see the scars on my face. The assumption is my 50 cal, the barrel, actually hit the ground before I did, and actually came back up and through my face. And on impact, I was out cold. I lost the entire right side of my jaw. I had no teeth, and I couldn't even. I honestly couldn't move what felt like to be the entire right side of my body. And I heard one of my pilots come over comms in a very broken, distorted way, and asked if anybody had heard where Pishel was. And then it went out, and then I went in and out, and I heard somebody else scream about where was the tail gunner. And my tail gunner was my military hero. It was my role model, or he was my role model. And I just started to scream, which is probably a terrible thing to do in that circumstance. But I just started to scream only because I wanted to remind myself that I'm at least semi-aware of what was going on. But then I wanted to wake him up, and I wanted to find him. And eventually 2nd Battalion 5th Marines came out to provide security and help us, or at least help my lead aircraft do a medical evacuation. And they found Pishel, and they threw me, Pishel is my tail gunner, but me and my tail gunner in the back of another aircraft. And everything was just in and out. And I started to fall asleep, and my tail gunner threw his arm over me to keep hydraulic fluid from the helicopters leaking into my open wounds. And the new left door gunner of the other helicopter bent down next to me and said, "Don't close your freaking eyes, because you won't open them again." And I just laid there, and I told myself that there was no way in hell that I was going to die without seeing my little sister. Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened.
So then you obviously probably visited several beautiful locations in the next 2 weeks to get out of Afghanistan, to get to another hospital, to get to launch school, or somewhere to get somewhere else. Just describe that process and when you got to see your folks.
Yeah. So so initially when they got me back to Camp Bastion, so it's a British air base that's a part of like, or adjacent to Camp Leatherneck. And like, I honestly didn't know that I was hurt. I knew that I had no teeth in my mouth, and I knew that I was choking on grit. I knew that I couldn't breathe on my own. But I truly, in my heart of hearts, knew, like, or thought that I wasn't, going to be sent home. I had just been combat meritoriously promoted to sergeant. I was like 6-7 weeks away from coming home. So in my mind, there was no way that that was going to happen. And then they wheeled me in. And I saw my sergeant major and my gunnery sergeant just standing there staring at me and crying. And I knew it was all over. And that was probably the hardest of anything that happened, of all of the pain, of all of the injuries, all of the recovery and surgeries that were to come. That was the hardest part, was watching these two guys cry and then tell me that I was on my way out. And, it was quite the process to actually finally get to Landstuhl. But they sent me through Kandahar and then on to Landstuhl. And that was actually the first time that I really got to, call home and talk to my mom. And, initially my family was just told that I was injured. My leg was injured, that I had a laceration on my face, but they didn't say that I was missing my jaw or anything like that. And my mom gets on the phone, and again, with all of the, the Marine and dark humor that we have, she starts laughing at me because I'm, jumbling over my words to actually talk to her. And she's just laughing away, and I got mad. I told her that, I wouldn't talk to her until I got back home stateside, and I hung up the phone. So I did not talk to my mom from Germany until I got back stateside. And I don't think I had a real conversation with my mom after that moment for like another week. So by the time I left Germany, I had to go to Walter Reed up in DC. And then finally I made my way to San Diego at Balboa to do the rest of my, recovery. And I was so mad at my mom for that when I saw her for the first time, I didn't even want to talk to her. I mean, I had a hell of a time recognizing her with all the brain injury stuff, and obviously just the foggy memory and the cloudiness of just medicines and everything else. But I knew for a fact that I was mad at my mom. So it took me a little while to wrap my head around the fact that she had no idea what was going on. And the moment that I saw them, I don't know. I mean, it was a game changer in some ways, because I knew that they had to fight tooth and nail to be able to get, from Florida to me in California. But initially it was a super strange experience between not knowing, really who my family was. I could pick them out of a lineup, sure. But it was really hard to have like this emotional connection of like, hey, this is my mom, my dad, and my sister. And then the fact that I was still a little mad at my mom.
Well, everybody heals and everybody grieves at their own pace. And anyone who's probably been a dad knows that when things aren't always going, that the dear daughters can let you know that you're the problem. And so in this case, probably your mom was the target of that from you. That's pretty neat. Well, when did you say to yourself, okay, here's about time for me to figure out what I'm going to do?
Well, I mean, initially, that's a really hard question to answer, because I went through 3 different medical review boards because I wanted to stay in the Marine Corps. I did not want to get out. I mean, I had the CG of Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego coming to me and saying that I was going to be the first drill instructor as an amputee. So on one hand, I'm very grateful that I had those types of people in my corner to be able to kind of cheer me on and maybe give me a little bit of false motivation. But I went through my first review board and found out that, they were going to say that I was unfit for duty. And it was mostly because of the pending amputation, but more so because of my the C2, C3, and C4 fractures in my spine that I had. And then, of course, obviously the brain injury and everything, all of the... And I didn't believe them. And I went through another review board, and they found me unfit for duty. And I had one last opportunity to try and do it again. And I was told that I would never go back to flying. And I was willing to kind of take that one on the chin and say, okay, I'll be fine. with doing something administratively and staying in the Marine Corps. And when they came back that third time and said, no, we can waive the amputation now at this point, we can waive anything that happened to you orthopedically, but we can't waive your eyes, your ears, or your brain. I was destroyed because, truly, I believed that I was going to be able to stay in the Marine Corps. And, once that happened, I felt robbed. I felt robbed of my military career. I felt robbed of my memory, years of my life, years of trying, my leg. I was absolutely devastated that that's what it came down to. And to be transparent, I didn't want to live after that. I got out in May of 2014, and I didn't see a reason in living my life for myself anymore. And I, for whatever reason, someone somewhere, what I believe, God spared me again after trying to drown myself in the Blythe River. And I'll never forget the moment that I woke up in the hospital surrounded by a handful of friends and my dad crying and saying, "You've got to be shitting me. The enemy couldn't kill you, and now you're going to do it for them." And that's truly the moment that I realized that I had a lot of life left to live. And that just because I came home broken, it didn't mean that, I couldn't keep pushing on with my life and trying to continue to give back to the veteran, the active duty community, but also people like me now, the disabled populations. So, obviously being forced into this, retirement, but then also the suicide attempt, then really my dad coming to me with that tough love. That's when everything changed.
That's great. We're going to shift a little bit to this redefining yourself idea. And before we do, we'd like to present a video that you've prepared for our guests to see as well. So go ahead and roll that video. Thanks, Jinx.
I think by what I'm doing with attempting a summit on Kirstie Ennis is a special period across the board. I think the more you break it down, the more people that can relate to it, and the more people that hopefully can be inspired by it. If an amputee watches this at one day and says, "You know what, I'm going to go out and climb Everest now," that's my goal. If a woman comes out and watches me do what I'm doing and says, "You know what, I want to climb the 7 summits," or "I want to go out and start small and work my way up," then I feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose. I just want a safe summit for me and my team. That's first and foremost. But, all of these, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this, or whatever it is, they're all just predetermined limitations that we set for ourselves. I like to think that there's going to be women, amputees, Marines, veterans, children facing adversity. I like to think that somebody's going to turn around and be moved by this and want to go out and chase their dreams.
Wow. Okay, so we feel a little bit humbled right now, and motivated to get busy again. You have some great mantras. Let's talk about these, or how you arrived at them. I'll call it out, and if you don't mind, but tell us what you were thinking. But reflect on who you are and what you have to offer. Give more than you get. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you read that one more time, or say that one more time?
Yeah, let's reflect on who you are and what you have to offer, and give more than you get in life.
Well, so for me, I am in the situation right now because of what I've been through. Whether we can blame it on my military career, or we can blame it on what I've been through thus far. But for me, I don't believe that this life is meant to just be lived for ourselves. I feel like we are in this together. I feel like, I didn't do anything. I didn't get through anything that I have alone. I firmly believe that we pull strength from the people around us. And in turn, we owe it to other people to make other people's lives. So for me, the Marine Corps to serve other people, but now I've also been, now I have this platform to be able to serve people in a totally different way. But truly, I mean, there's the whole reason that I've been able to wake up every single day and put one foot in front of the other is because of the fact that I know that I can be of service to others. And so, I mean, and that's what's fueled me the entire time.
I love it. And then you say, show the world that we control our circumstances. They do not control us.
I mean, and the harsh reality of that is we cannot control what this crazy, vicious world throws at us. I mean, look at what we're dealing with for the last year. No one really had any control over that. But we can control what we make of it. And don't get me wrong, obviously things are challenging, but we are the ones that can control our, at the end of the day, can dictate what we're actually capable of. As long as you keep your head and your heart in the right place, everything's going to be fine. But we also have to be able to shift our perspectives, surrounding that. So again, the moment that we embrace the fact that, yeah, we can't control what's going to happen, but we can control, how we react to it, and then actually what we're capable of.
Absolutely. I think I often say the only thing in life you're going to control is your attitude. Everything else is a crapshoot, and deal with it. You said there are no boundaries. We want to help all people, not just one category, not just veterans, not disabled, not just women, not just whatever. Tell me a little bit about that thought.
Well, so to be transparent, when I started my foundation and what I was trying to do with at least giving back to people in general, want to do it. I didn't want to be, confined to only helping, one category of person. Just like when I signed up for the military, I signed up to defend my country, and that, that's people from every background, every walk of life, men, women, children, again, ethnicity, all of it. And so for me, at the core of what I'm trying to do now, but it's not just about helping veterans or just about helping, disabled people or amputees. What I'm trying to do right now is inspire populations around the world, aid underserved communities around the world, but then also show people that they can tap into what's right in front of them to change their life. So again, a little ironic right now, given our circumstances with me being behind a screen and talking to you guys, the moment that we actually put our phones down and look outside and start having those real conversations and truly our lives or our quality of life, rather, will be infinitely improved. So for me, that's the most important part about what I'm trying to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, we do all of these different things by giving opportunities in the outdoors and giving people prosthetics. But at the root of what I'm trying to do, it's really to show people that if you get outside and you make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, you will grow and you will get better.
I want to circle back and ask you a question. So we have some of our teammates have some challenges with alcohol, and some have challenges maybe with substance abuse, or some are considering suicide. You described the suicide attempt or ideation or failure earlier, but there are also others that say this storytelling stuff is kind of canned and not that impactful. And I believe you are impactful, and your words are impactful to someone out there tonight. So what would you, or how would you amplify what you've just said with regard to a message to someone who's listening right now, who you can impact?
Well, for me, again, I gave up when I did, because I didn't love myself and I stopped putting myself first. I lost self-respect and the value that I once had. So, I mean, I will blame losing that purpose for the most part. But with that said, like, even when I sat down and I wanted to give up, the moment that I took a step back and I looked around and said, you know what, my actions right now are hurting the people that I love, that's when things got better. Or the moment that I took a step back and I looked up and I said, you know what, never made, to include the guys from Iron Tail 06 that never made it home. If I am so selfish to not continue living my life, moving forward with my life, living, breathing the whole nine, trying to be successful in other realms, that's terrible of me. Because again, even though I came home broken and busted and maybe a little bit different mentally and emotionally, you know, I'm still here and I still can, and I still should live my life for other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for saying that. So if you're out there and you need help, contact us, contact Kirstie, contact somebody, get connected, and let them walk you back into a good place. Just a side question. Former Marine Captain Teresa Larson works with Adaptive Athletes out of San Diego. Have you had a chance to meet Teresa yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll follow up and get you connected here. You guys will be awesome team. So I wanted to kind of wrap with you've had life experiences in and out of uniform. What are your closing thoughts this evening to our great audience?
I'm gonna again kind of rewind a little bit. At the end of the day, it's the 6 inches between your ears and what's behind your rib cage that dictate what you're capable of. So I really hope that everybody takes the moment to dig deep. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking a step back and reflecting on your life, figuring out where you want to be, making a plan to get there, and just teaching yourself how to endure a little bit more. Because at the end of the day, we have no idea what we're capable of yet. You know, I had no idea that all of my suffering, through my recovery and through everything that I went through, again, mentally, physically, and emotionally, I had no idea that it was going to lead me to where I am today. And I had no idea that I was actually capable of it. And so for me, look at where I was and how far I came. Again, I mean, I think that's what it all comes down to, by being able to take a step back and reflect on the life that we want to live.
Great. Now, we just put Kirstie Ennis Foundation.org with an exclamation point. Is that the correct website?
So yes, you can get to Kirstie Ennis Foundation by .org or .com, and yes, please check us out. Again, take a look at what we're doing. It really is. It's 100% volunteer based, and it's just good people coming together to do good things for other people.
All right. Well, listen, what a pleasure to meet you further, to be inspired by you, and to learn from you. Thank you for our freedoms based on the service of your mom and dad and your service. And thanks for your service, of course, that continues today. Just really awesome. Thanks so much. I'll let you give us any closing comments, and then you'll be followed by Colonel Bill Butler, who will wrap us up.
Yep, sounds good. Well, thank you guys for having me. It was an honor to serve. And truly, just to piggyback off of what you said, if you do feel alone and you are listening, please reach out to me. I mean, let's talk through it, because I will be the first person to sit down and have a conversation with you about it. And I'll let you know the highs and lows of everything that I've been through, and anything that I can give to you to help you get through it, I'll do it.
All right. Semper Fidelis. Thank you very much. And Bill, go ahead and lead us to success.
All right. Thanks, sir. Kirstie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for your service. Thanks for what you continue to do for our communities, just by the example that you set for so many of us. This is our first 2021 Veterans Voices, so thank you for kicking this off. You've set a very high bar for others to follow and to try to aspire to achieve. Best of luck to you in May when you attempt Denali, and we'll be rooting for you and wishing you some good weather as you summit the highest peak in North America. So learn more about the Kirstie Ennis Foundation at KirstieEnnisFoundation.com or .org, and figure out how you can support this great nonprofit. And just as a reminder, if you'd like to get involved in the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, check out our website, nationalvmm.org. There are a number of ways that you can get involved or just learn more about what we do and how we support veterans, how we share their stories, and how we give back to the community as well. Our next event is on March 6th, so this Saturday is a virtual rally point. It'll be from 10 to 12, not 10 to 11. Please join us as we feature Major Retired Tony Main and the Gallant Few and a Vet Expo. So they have got a network of 20,000 men and women in America who support veterans as they transition out of service and into the civilian world. And that'll be a great program with some really, really inspiring speakers as well. And then on March 29th, we will celebrate Vietnam Veterans Day. So keep an eye out on our website and on our Facebook page about details of that to follow. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening. Semper Fi.
All right. And cool. Fantastic. Thank you.
Wars aren't fought by countries. They're fought by people. Now, hear their stories in their own words. Honor their service in your own way. At the only museum in America that gives a voice to all our veterans. The National Veterans Memorial and Museum. It's more than a museum. It's the new home of the brave.